Hello, this is Brian Foster on Kardec Radio, presenting the program Spiritism and the Spirit World Around Us.
Hello, this is Brian Foster. It is July 29th, 2018. Welcome everybody to the program. We are on every Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, time zones in between, and all time zones around the world. I'm excited to be here this afternoon. We are evening, depending where you are, or even morning. We are talking about our episode 5 of Spirit Assistance on Earth, and it's all covered in this book, How We Are Guided by Spirits, Book 3 of Spiritism, The Spirit World Revealed to an Anglican Vicar. In my previous talks, I've been talking about books 1 and 2, and it all started with this book, Heaven and Below. So I would recommend you read them in order. Although I know some people have read book 2 first. You never know. So why did I write these books? I wrote these books because of the messages. Well, first, it all started with when I discovered, years ago, Allan Kardec, the Spirits book. This is where it all started. This is where anyone who's interested in Spiritism, I recommend you read this book first. You can get this on PDF. You can go on my blog, nwspiritism.com. You can click on his picture, and it takes you to the EDICEI bookstore, and you can order his book. You can also order his book, of course, in Amazon.com, and you can also find it if you search for it using DuckDuckGo or whatever, and just put Allan Kardec PDF, space PDF, and you'll find his books on PDF. So you can read it right on your computer. That's how I found it. I read his books, his 5 main books, all, and it didn't cost me a penny. So it all started with Spiritism. Allan Kardec started Spiritism in the 1850s, and he, in response to he was called the codifier of Spiritism. He communicated. He did not communicate. He was not a medium, but he talked to other mediums. He sent them a list of questions, and he codified all the answers in his book. Of course, the famous book, Spirit's book, 1,019 questions and answers. And he didn't take it from one spirit. He used mediums throughout Europe and made sure the answers were similar. And he collated all that and codified Spiritism from that. And of course, Allan Kardec and the Spirit of Truth, as referenced in the New Testament, Jesus said, I'm going to send you the Consoler, the Spirit of Truth. And this is what it says. So this is Spiritism is brought to us as the third revelation, the first being Moses, the second being Jesus, and the third being Spiritism. Why was Spiritism brought to us? Spiritism explains so much more. It was brought to us because we are ready for it. We are technologically, and our social status and our culture was ready for these messages. We were a little bit more freer of mind, more, less stayed in our ways, and we were able to accept it. And of course, Spiritism is not a static doctrine. It is a doctrine, not a religion. It is dynamic, meaning more and more authors come and tell us things. So that's why my book, How We Are Guided by Spirits, I took information that was sent to the Reverend G. Vale Owen. He was an Anglican vicar in the early 1900s, and he got, like 4 or 5 books of different spirits sending in information, and all this information was just, complementary to Spiritism. And then, of course, we had Chico Xavier, who was just a brilliant medium, and he wrote almost 500 books, all given to him by different spirits. And of course, the most famous of his books are the Andre Louis series of books. And of course, I would recommend anyone reading No Solar first. There's also a movie called Astral City. You can see the movie. It's a great movie. It's in Portuguese, but it has subtitles, which I love. And it's a Philip Glass score, so it's well worth it. You can get it on YouTube for $3.99 to rent. So I would recommend anyone just to see that movie, just see the feeling. And it really tells you what Spiritism brings to you that other philosophies and doctrines and religions don't, is it gives you solid information about why we are here, what is waiting for us, the organization and the process of the spirit world. That is so important, because once you understand that, it makes your life, it gives your life purpose and meaning. To me, one of the things that people always say, well, if there's a God, why is there so much evil and chaos? And why do bad things happen to the good people and good things happen to bad people? Well, it's totally explained by Spiritism. In quick summary, we are on this earth to learn. We reincarnate over and over again. When we are in one life, we have to right the mistakes we made in the past life. And therefore, some people who are seemingly really excellent people may have to go through tough trials. But let me assure you, the majority of the time, these people actually said, no, I want this trial. Let's plan this trial. I need to change my character. We're on earth to really reform and improve our character to it, so we can all eventually ascend to be a pure spirit. Now, let's talk about what we're going to talk about tonight. Oh, right. One more thing. I want to tell everybody we're streaming on Kardec Facebook page, Kardec Radio Facebook page. Kardec Radio is a wonderful app you can get on your iPhone or your Android phone. You get Spiritist in English, radio programs 24 hours a day. And on Kardec Radio Facebook page, you will get other, much more better people than I am giving you live streams. They'll give you notifications. So go to Kardec Radio Facebook page and also load Kardec Radio on your Android or your Apple phone. You can just go to the App Store or the Play Store. It's all free. Please do that. Also, please share. When we do these things, share these to your friends. Go to my YouTube channel. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You'll see it right on the right-hand navigation bar. Also, you can also sign up on my blog. That way, you'll make sure you'll know what happens on my blog. I put, every day there's another article on Spiritism. So share that to your friends. Don't force it on them. Of course, we don't force anything on anybody here, but just share it with them if they have questions. Oh, there's Carlos. Hello. Okay. So now let's talk about more of what we're saying on book 3, how we are guided by spirits. Now let's talk about the angel visitors to earth, right? We're all interested. We all really want to understand angels and spirits and so forth. So the first thing I want to tell you is that an angel, a high spirit, is us, right? They have been through the same time after time of reincarnation as we have. Now, why? So if you look at people's near-death experiences, you'll see in a lot of near-death experiences, they'll come and they'll see Uncle Bob and Aunt Mabel, and they'll be able to recognize them. And then invariably there'll be one or two, like it was an angel, and I could not see them. It was so bright. I could make out a human form, but I couldn't really focus on them because it was so bright, right? That's what happens. So all that is the difference in spiritual maturity between people's close family members or other ones they see on earth, in the spirit world at the level they're on, versus higher spirits. Now, when a spirit, as you mature and as you learn and you become more spiritual, you become less matter and more energy. And that's really what the spirit world is. We here on earth in our incarnate form, we're on these dense bodies. We are really pretty solid matter, right? We are energy and matter. But the ratio is higher on matter than energy. As you go higher and higher, the ratio decreases. You get higher energy, less matter. And therefore, higher spirits, angels, look like us, is so bright because they are energy, and the brightness isn't like a light bulb. It's really a reflection of love that permeates the whole environment within the heavenly spheres. And that reflection of love makes them appear bright because they can reflect that love because they are full of love, honesty, charity, fraternity in their spiritual personality. So let's get to angel visitors on earth. So the spirit Kathleen, who was a spokesperson for a group of spirits talking to the Reverend Vale Owen. Now, a lot of what happens in this, and the same things happen to Chico, is when a spiritist medium talks to a spirit, it isn't just really one spirit. They select the best spirit that can connect to the mind of that medium. And then they interpret other spirits around them, and they all focus to that one spirit so they can talk to that medium. And Kathleen was the spokesperson for a group of spirits. And this is what she was talking about when the complications of high spirits and angels when they come to earth. This is what she said. It is no light matter, I do assure you, to receive the command, go forth downward. For we proceed earthward, both the brightness of our environment and of our own persons also grow less and less. And by the time we reach the neighborhood of earth, we can but with difficulty see about us. Now, this is something we don't think about. We think of these angels that are the omnipotent beings that they go wherever they want. There's no difficulty, and they're just there, right? And no, I mean they're us, and they have to get, in order for them to come down here, they have to come to this dim neighborhood, right, where we are, and so so even for spirits traveling within different levels in the spirit realm isn't simple. Now, they can certainly do that, but it's not simple. And what I've done in my books is within the information given by Vale Owen, I also contrast and compare that to information given to other spiritist mediums. So in the book, Workers of the Life Eternal by the Spirit Andre Luis, psychographed by Francisco Chico, he's also called Chico, C. Xavier. And of course, you can get all those books, as I said before, on the EDICI bookstore. Just click Allan Kardec's picture. You'll get right to this bookstore from my blog, nwspiritism.com. And of course, the whole Andre Luis series of books are just wonderful. And so Andre Luis, he resides in one of the lower levels of heaven. And what's marvelous in the books is he's always like this part of a group after the first book that kind of goes different places and understands how the spirit world works. And by his different travels, we understand more of what's going on. So Andre Luis, still in this episode, still in heaven, he was there to prepare a special chamber to receive a high spirit. He was part of a group, and this group collectively, they were requested to concentrate their will to create a pleasant atmosphere inside the chamber so the spirit could materialize there and talk to the group. So visualize this group of people in No Solar. They were in one of the the lower levels of heaven in this heavenly city, and you can actually see the heavenly city in pretty good representation in the movie, of course, Astral City. And so the organizer of the group, who invited the high spirit, and his spirit was Asepios, I think. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, and told him more about who was coming. So he is describing a very high spirit. So this is what Spiritism does. It tells you the hierarchy, the processes, the organization. You really are going to be prepared of why you're on earth and where you are going. This is what he said. Asepios belongs to the redeemed communities of the plane of the immortals in the highest regions of Earth's spiritual realm. So there's different levels of heaven. He lives far above our notions of form and in conditions that are inconceivable to our current concept of life. He has already lost all direct with Earth per se, and can only make himself felt there through messengers and missionaries of great power. His sacrifice in coming to visit us is to be appreciated. Despite our improved position in relation to incarnate humans, he really rarely comes here. So, very interesting, is it not? It just shows you how higher spirits, it gets more and more difficult for them to come back to the lower levels. And he's difficult even coming back to the lower levels of heaven. And Andre then finds out that a spirit like Asepios will only reincarnate on Earth every 5 to 8 centuries. So 500 to 800 years. Then Andre asks if Asepios is the highest spiritual form to be found in the universe. And he receives the following answer, which of course is very close to what we have also been told in the Reverend Vale Owen's book. This is the answer he got. Not at all. Asepios is associated with other self-denying mentors of terrestrial humankind. He is part of the highest echelon of the community to which he belongs. But in reality, he is still a spirit of our planet. Although working in the highest realms of life, we must travel for a long time in the evolutionary arena before we can follow in his footsteps. However, We believe that our sublime visitor longs to be part of the board of representatives of our orb in the glorious communities that inhabit Jupiter and Saturn. For example, in turn, the members of those orbs anxiously await the moment in which they will be summoned to the divine assemblies that govern our entire solar system. Among these latter are those who carefully and watchfully await the minute in which they will be called to work with those who maintain the constellation Hercules, to whose family we belong. Those who guide our group of stars naturally aspire one day to make up the crown of celestial spirits who support life and guide it in the galactic system through which we move. And did you know, my friend, that our Milky Way, a breeding ground and font of millions of worlds, is just one single detail of the divine creation, a mere corner of the universe? So what did he tell us? He told us so much. First, there are unknown levels to climb before one sits at a table with a supreme intelligence. This is why we are told, even in the spirit world, even in this, the levels of heaven around us, even they don't really understand God at this point in time. They say in the spirit book that no, you're not going to be able to understand God. And even the people in these levels of heaven, they don't understand God. And at each step, so each level, one is transformed into a higher ratio of energy to matter until one day, billions of years from now, a spirit living around the earth, one day will become almost pure energy, if not pure energy. I'm not sure. Still, we are told so much, but again, there must be so much more. I mean, this is like looking through a keyhole to heaven, right? We're seeing things and we're being told more because we're ready for it, right? We're ready to understand what it means to love everyone, right? To cherish everyone, to be fraternal. It doesn't mean we have to be pushovers, right? This is what's great in this book, The Gospel According to Spiritism. I love this book. Again, he's talking about different things in the Bible, like the meek will inherit the earth. What does that mean, right? Let the dead bury the dead. What does that mean? I'm sure that most of us have, read the Bible and said, the meek shall inherit the earth. How are they going to do that, right? And this explains that, right? And when they say meek, it doesn't mean you're a pushover, that, whatever anybody wants to do to you, they do. No, it means that you are always calm and nice. You're forceful, right? You can use your indignation, but you don't use your anger, right? You don't lash out. You think things through, but then you have to say, nope, you have to do this. I demand this level of performance from you, but you do it logically and with good, in good manner, right? In a gentlemanly manner. That's what it was meant by the meek shall inherit the earth. Interesting, is it not? Much more explanatory. So this is showing us that there's level upon level, right? There's earth, there's people in control of earth, there's spirits in control of earth. There are other planets. Now, again, when I first read the Spirits book and I read that there was, Jupiter and Saturn, there's nobody inhabits Jupiter and Saturn. That's impossible. This thing, can't happen. But then as I was reading more and I started to understand exactly how complex, how logical the spirit universe is, and I could go on this forever, is what you find out is that there are different dimensions. Even string theory says there are 11. Sometimes they say there's 13 dimensions. Even string theory says there's multiple dimensions. And what it is we inhabit just one of those dimensions within our physical universe at this time. And there in the spirit universe, there's even different dimensions. So what we see as Jupiter as this gas giant, right, is actually something else in the spirit world. It inhabits the same place, but it's entirely different on a different dimension. So when you read these things, understand that. And they'll actually tell you that more and more on the Allan Kardec's book, The Genesis. And I will go through that a lot more on my set of books, all talking about, the spirit world, my whole set of books of 3, Heaven and Below, this, spirits and the spirit universe, which is this one. You'll see a lot more information on dimensions, on spirits and the spirit universe on book 2 that will explain a lot of that to you. So this is why, so there is just so much to this, right? So we really live in this dense, logical universe. And this is really one of the truths that you need to know, that the truth is so much more fantastic than any science fiction or fantasy novel you'll ever read. This is what once you understand the spirit world and understand how powerful you will become, is where when you go to heaven, thought is action, and that you understand why we're on earth is to really modify our behavior and be able to be calm and cool in all circumstances. And that's why our training is so tough, right? Because our training is tough, right? We go through life. It's not easy. There's disappointments, there's tragedies, there's great pain. It's great fun too. But that's why we're being trained, is to always be calm and cool, right? So let's get back on angels on earth. I start going off on tangents. So Kathleen tells the Reverend Vale Owen how she must become accustomed to the conditions of our planet when she descends from her heavenly sphere. This is what she told him. This is what's just so great about this book. There's so many of these, in one paragraph, there's so much. This at first, but by and by our eyes become attuned to the coarser vibrations impinging on them, and then we are able to see. This also comes more readily by practice, but it is a blessing only that it enables us to do our work among you, and not by any means to be desired of itself alone. For the sights we are mostly such as do not give us cheer, but much heart-rendering to take back with us into our higher and brighter homes. So what did she say? Kathleen, reveals that high spirits are not devoid of emotion. On the contrary, they are love personified, and as such are deeply troubled by the acts we commit on each other here on earth. It's like seeing middle-aged school kids who are, we all know they're slightly crazy, right? They can barely contain themselves. And you're just going, oh my heavens, I can't believe they're doing that. Why are they doing that? But you love them, right? You love them. And the teachers in middle school, they must be the greatest. I could never be a teacher in middle school. They must be the greatest set of people ever. I remember when I went to Ball Junior High in Anaheim, California, we had this one guy, Alden Esping. He was like the nicest. He loved us. I don't know how he stood us, right? Because when you're in 7th or 8th grade, who can stand you? So, he did, and he loved us. And when I think of angels and how they look at us, I think of him, because he would look down on us. He would look at us and just kind of laugh and know that the dumb things we did, well, we would eventually grow out. And that's how angels look at us, right? The dumb things that we do, the terrible things we do. And that's, that does the whole gamut, right? Primitive spirits will rob, they will murder, they will do all sorts of things. They will eventually grow out. This is why you have to be full of love to know, you don't have to let people get away with things, as I discussed before, but you just have to look at each person, and even the worst person at some time, it may be multiple lives, right? Very far, 2,000 years in the future, 10,000 years in the future, eventually they went. They will get better. Oh, and Lisa says, I went to school in California. Yes. I know. Yep. Anaheim, right next to Disneyland. I don't know what it's like now, though. So that's why when we see selfless individuals who travel to war zones, like as part of organizations like Doctors Without Borders, like we get an idea of the dedication and love that motivates us, motivates high spirits that come to us into this chaotic and violent planet. And Kathleen then dives deeper into the process of adapting to our, Elisa says she went to San Diego. That's not very close, right? Just a 2.5 hour drive. So now this is what Kathleen said. And she dives deeper in the process of adapting to our primitive environment, right? She's from higher levels. She comes down to ours. This is what she said. As we approach the earth, the effect of it is not so apparent to our senses, but it is about us nevertheless, laves us, penetrates through us, and permeates all our being. And by it we are sustained, as the air tube sustains the diver in the ocean floor, where the light from the wider, freer atmosphere above is dim, and he goes heavily by reason of the denser element in which he moves. So it is with us when we find difficulty in speaking, so that we may be heard of you, or make mistakes in our wording, or even in the manner of the message. Then be patient, and do not ever be thinking that some deceiver is at hand. For bethink you, my friend, how difficult it would be for one diver to speak audibly to another, both helmeted and with water between them. And then you realize how much patience and steadfast endeavor on our part is needed, and will perchance more readily give us a more patient hearing on your own. So this isn't just, and you read the Bible and other things, angels come, we'll just talk to you, right? It really is, it's not easy for them. And, you wonder really what happened, although it was, written pretty simple, right? Moses, Abraham talks to the angel, and it must have taken immense effort, right? To communicate. And so Kathleen lays out the hurdles that stand in the way of open communication between two dimensions. Yet this obstacle, while formidable, are not insurmountable. Love and dedication will win through. And after each attempt, high spirits returned and are refreshed. So now this is interesting. So this isn't like an angel is like this complete, omnipotent, totally powerful. This angel has a personality, right? This angel has feelings. This angel gets exhausted. And this is what she said. But when we, our labor done here below, face us about towards the upper reaches of the heavens of God, then we the more readily feel the stream of life flowing from the distant home of rest and refreshment. So what's she telling us? There is an immense effort to facilitate information about the spirit world and why we must strive to become more spiritual and less materialistic by the forces of light. Spirits such as Kathleen are toiling tirelessly to open our hearts. This is the spiritual revolution that is happening before our very eyes. And let me tell you, and there are whole, what they call like temples or areas where these spirits will go, and they'll go into certain healing waters and sound, and it will let them rest and refresh after they've been here on earth helping us out. And so this shows you the level of commitment for us, right? For us, the students learning how to become civilized. And the spirit realm is this spiritual revolution has been happening since 1850, and it's happening more and more. There is more and more mediumships being brought to normal people. What this doctrine has told us is the spirit realm has started to abandon communicating to the high priests and religious orders, because that's what happened in the past, right? They hid the messages, or worse, they miscommunicated them to make them appear to give the priestly class more power over the masses. Spiritism is bringing the message that we, each individual, are responsible for opening a channel to the higher realms. So via near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, visions, meditation, and more importantly, daily prayer, the spirit world encourages all of us to begin a daily dialogue with the other side. Believe me, it will take time and effort. Start small, speak from the heart, and calmly listen to your conscience and heed what it tells you. That's the conscious is our set of laws, divine laws sent to each of us. Believe me, it took me a long time to learn, try not to rationalize away something I want to do against my conscience. We all do. I've done it many, many times. But after time, you will become more proficient in discerning the signs to guide you. Now, let's talk about that, how we're being guided. Let me just take a quick drink here. So we are being told, by Spiritist doctrine, right? Allan Kardec, Leon Denis, these other Spiritist authors, Chico Xavier, Yvonne Piero. We're given all this information, this great information. Believe me, read and understand. And we're trying to learn. And that's what I'm doing. I'm bringing this information in. And I'll write books like The Case for Reincarnation. And I try to take all this different information and say, okay, this is how incarnation works. From all the different spiritualist literature I've read, this is how incarnation works. The problem is the solution. I talk about, okay, why are you having problems? And what could you have done in a past life in order for you to have that problem, and for you to analyze your problem and analyze what you're supposed to learn from it. And really, when you have a problem, that is a solution. So a lot of us say, okay, well, if there is a God, why doesn't God just manifest a great demonstration of divine power and close forever any doubt of the existence of a supreme intelligence, a first creator? So how could people be allowed to blindly, ignore their spirituality, pursue temporary material happiness when the cost is lost time and misery in many lives? I mean, that's a logical argument. It's a very logical argument. And I want to tell you here why we're not just told, right? The rewards of heaven are so obvious. Why prolong the suffering of those in ignorance? And this, and not only us here on earth have that, but there's also there's in this great passage in the Reverend G. Vale Owen, a high spirit also had a doubt. He was actually pretty high spirit in the 10th level of heaven. And this high spirit was sent on the mission with his group. And he'd stopped in the 5th level of heaven. And while there, he took a rest to meditate. And, he was thinking about this, so why doesn't God just tell everybody, I'm here, right? Understand you need to be good, right? So, and he was surrounded by the trees and the sounds of nature. And during that blissful moment, he wasn't thinking about why evil was permitted to exist by God. But then a man sat beside him. And this is what he said. His mantle was of rich purple. Underneath, he wore a tunic of gossamer through which his flesh shone like sunlight reflected from the heart of a crystal. His shoulder jewel was of deep green, and the one upon his forehead was of green and violet. His hair was brown, but his eyes were of no color of which you know. So he sat there looking before him, and I looking upon him in his great loveliness for a long time. And then he said, my brother, this seat is a very cozy one and pleasant to rest upon. Thank you. And I replied, yes, my lord, for I had no more words than these. Then he said, and yet it is a bed of flowers upon which you set your mind to lie upon. And to that I could not give any answer. So he continued, think you, my friend, that these little red beauties of the flower family, which are filled with budding life and comeliness, such as little children have, were made for such purpose as this to which we put them? And he said, well, I had not thought of it, sir. And the higher spirit said, no, that is after the manner of most of us. And it is strange, too, thinking that we be, every one of us, offspring of the one who is thinking all the time, and who does not, that is not in agreement with the reason. And it is within the ocean of the life of him. We swim from age to age and never out of it. It is strange how we can act unthinkingly, who are the children of such a father as he. So then this spirit, he was ashamed of crushing the glorious flowers because he was just sitting right on them. He got up and started to walk with this high lord who had sat next to him. And this high spirit was part of the group that used the spirit Kathleen to communicate with the Reverend G. Vale Owen. I talked about this before. And this was all written in Book 3 of the Ministry of Heaven that G. Vale Owen brought to us in 1917. And then the high spirit, the spirit talked to the very high lord who sat near to him, said, hey, this is my favorite walk. It is hither that I often come to think out matters which perplex me. And then the very high spirit said, yes, this is a sphere of perplexity beyond its fellows. And coming hither, you often sit down upon some bank and think things out. Or do you rather think yourself deeper into perplexity, I wonder? But let that rest a while. Where sat you last when you came hither to think? And then he said, okay, it was here when I sat. I came here about last time. But recently, yes? And he said, yes. He goes, and yet I see no mark on your body shape upon the moss or its blossoms. They have very soon recovered themselves of any untoward pressure they received. Yet this is also the concern of the all-creator, equal in value and appraised with the bruising of the souls of men. For whatever work is his indeed, and his alone. What was he trying to say? So, again, this is like when Jesus talks in parables, which I never understood. Most of the parables, what does that mean? That's why I love the gospel of Spiritism and gospel according to Spiritism. And because it's really, it's like, again, being a teacher, right? You're supposed to learn, if they give you all the answers, what have you learned? Nothing. You don't know how to think. So the high spirit was deliberately shown the red flowers fully restored. They had been crushed under his weight, but now had no outward sign to mark them as once almost destroyed. This very even higher Lord, right, wished to impress that the blistering furnace of suffering after a time leaves little or no outward mark upon us. After throwing out that little nugget, the very high Lord, embarked on the next step to enlighten. He led him to a hill in order for him to experience a vision. Now, again, before I go on what that vision was, let's think about when he said, okay, well, those flowers, they weren't bruised like they're back to where they were. And that's just what Spiritism gives you. When we are in midst of our life, right? And something bad happens. It's like, oh my God, this is the worst that's happened. My life is horrible. I'm going to give up. That's it, right? But then Spiritism says we are an immortal soul. So what is immortality? It means you live forever. So what is your life, let's say 80 years, divided by immortality? It's zero. It's nothing. It's like you disciplined a 3-year-old, right? Maybe stood him or her in the corner, and they just cried and cried and cried. And you were the worst parent in the world. And then the next minute, they're back again, right? This is what we are. The timeline's longer, right? We feel it, but again, it goes, right? It goes away. So even our death is not that big a deal. We don't really die. We're just back in the spirit world from which we came, and we will spend the vast majority of our immortality. Incarnations are mostly, and our first incarnations are here to improve ourselves, and later on there'll be missions to help other students. So this is the vision. So think of this when I talk to you about the vision. At length there arose in the midst of the dome the figure of a man who ascended until he stood upon the top of it. It was the figure of Christ, clothed all in white. The garment he wore came from his shoulders to his feet, but he did not hide them. And he stood there, a rosy hue began to flood his garment, and thus deepened in tone until at length he stood there enrobed in deep, rich crimson. Upon his brow, a circlet of rubies too. And when he held his hand stretched outward, I saw that on the back of each one great red stones sparkled, and I knew what this vision meant to me. He had been lovely in his whiteness, but now he shone with crimson loveliness and rich, deep beauty, which made me gasp for ecstasy as I looked upon him. This is what he learned. The high spirit, the spirit is learning, realized that Christ came to earth as a pure white light of love and blessings. But for the true message to sink deep into the hearts of the believers, suffering had to sear like a red-hot glowing knife that had laid in the fire, to close an open wound, the goodness in, so it could never be removed. Then he saw Christ's effect upon his flock. So his vision, I'll continue on. Upon the plain below, we saw the people thronging to get a sight of this glory. And upon their faces, their robes, there shone the light projected from his body, and it seemed to breathe some call to sacrifice and service, which needed to trust to undertake it, inasmuch as those who should offer themselves for work must go forth and suffer, yet without knowing quite all the mystery of suffering. So it was as if it was the first time. This spirit looked upon the Lord beside him and saw the inner suffering and the faint lines that revealed themselves in Christ's face, which in the Lord's face that he was talking to, which did not detract from his handsomeness. It made him glow with love all the more. Then this higher spirit told us what was said next. Well, this is what he said. But I could not speak to him, and so went by in silence. And then he said, "My brother, I've come to you from a place much brighter than this sphere of yours, to bring you hither that you should see the man of sorrows in his glory," meaning Jesus Christ. These sorrows he came forth freely to gather to himself and make them his own. Without them, he would lack some loveliness, which is his today. And those sorrows which give to him so much of gentleness, which they are in their crude and undeveloped state, flood earth with pain and the hells and torment. These are but for the moment for each who passes beneath their shadow, meaning us. We cannot penetrate, my brother, into all the great heart of God, but we can, as even now we have done, get at times a glimpse of the region shining through it all, and then perplexity loses some of its more sinister aspects, and the hope arises that someday we may be able the better to understand. But till that day dawns for me, I am content to know that he who came forth of the Father's heart came light and pure, with steadfast purpose, faced the task ahead where his path lay amongst the turgid clouds of sin and hatred was gathered about the planet of earth. Nay, into the very hells he went and sought out those who suffered there. And because of their anguish, he suffered also. So the man of sorrows returned to the steps of his Father's throne, the task accomplished, but not as he gone forth did he return. He went forth white in purity of holiness. He came back again, the crimson warrior, prince and conqueror. But the blood he shed was not that of another, but only his own, Strange warfare this, and new in the world's stranger history, that the warrior meeting his foe should turn the blade towards his own breast, and yet come forth conqueror by reason of the blood he shed. So Christ, right, to the Romans and to the, to the Jewish ruling class, he lost, right? He was killed, but yet he won through his death. And so what is he telling us? He's telling us we all must find our own path to purity. We all must find it. If we're just told, look, you need to be good because, this is going to happen to you. You're going to have to use this energy. We go, oh, okay, right? Okay, yeah, I know I have to be good. But, there might be that time, I'll be a little selfish, right? Or I might get mad at somebody, but, there's God. I understand this. I'll be good. Well, we know that doesn't work, right? This is what the spirit world is trying to tell us. We go through this. We go through this red hot pain, this suffering, right? This is what they call the kiln, right? We go through the suffering kiln to remove the blemishes in our body and to actually teach us to be good in all circumstances. If God came down to earth and says, hey, I'm God, right? I have all power. Now you should believe in me. And then left for 50 years. After 5 years ago, well, I haven't seen that. It must have just been a mass hysteria, right? No, it wouldn't work. And the reason we have to go through this suffering, right? If God wanted us all perfect, to be perfect all the time, we would be like ants. We'd be programmed. We'd all be the same. No, this is so much love given by God and whatever you want to call it, the supreme intelligence, the first creator, is we are allowed to have our free will. We are allowed to become a pure spirit, but with our own personality. We are all unique, yet we become perfect in our own uniqueness. I mean, you know how hard that is? That's why this whole method is just brilliant. So therefore, as I said before, we all find our own path to purity. For some, it entails ages of suffering. For others, only the vision of love itself serves as a catalyst. God, in his effort to promote free will, in all cases, have provided multiple paths to the same destination. There is no one road. There's no one direction. There is no set time, only freedom to explore. And this is what all good teachers know, right? This is why more and more is, modern teaching is, they just don't say, no, learn by rote, right? Some things, of course you have to learn by rote, but learn by your own way to explore, right? And I know it gets very difficult for a lot of people, but you would have to learn how you solve problems. Therefore, even in our physical, after we're adults and we're out of school, it is up to us to set the pace to determine how close we should hold the lessons learned and move beyond our pettiness into the world of light and love. Now, let's go into inspiration and guidance. So we've talked about angels' heart has come to earth. We've talked about how it is difficult, right? How we must find our own place. Now, we're not sitting here, we're not just put on earth and okay, make your own way, feed yourself. No, we are helped all the time. We all have guardian angels, spiritism mentors. And the Spirit Kathleen tells us directly and in plain English. This is what's so wonderful about Spiritism. It's just okay. This is how it works. We're telling you this because we're hoping you learn something. She tells us directly in plain English that our lives are predestined, that we on earth follow a plan that has been created from the highest reaches of heaven. This is what she says, and this is what she says that is so powerful. Know you, therefore, that you who dwell in one of the uttermost of these spheres, that such duties are assigned to you have all been worked out as to their class, and the end to which they tend by those who dwell in the realms far above you. These schemes of allotted service are transmitted downward until they reach you and are made known to you, sometimes in one manner and sometimes in another, and to one more plainly and to another less watchful, not so plain. Nevertheless, all who run the race of earth life may read the scroll if he choose, and persevere till still to win that light be vouchsafed for him as to what his life shall be and to what end he has been guided. That is, in plain English, your life is predestined. Now, I never believed that until, and I've told this story other times, but I learned, by being told things years that, would happen years in the future, how they, very specific things that they happen. And that's what started my whole quest. Like, okay, how can things be predestined, right? I when I was younger, I believed in God, right? I was never an atheist, but I believe in God, but I believe in a God who is far away, right? Kind of like the English who sent their convicts to Australia. Go, okay, well, we sent them to Australia. We'll check in again with them, 5-10 years from now, see if they're alive or what's going on. Hopefully they're better. That's kind of my idea that we were unimportant. Imagine my, just astonishment to know how close, how much love and guidance that each one of us. There's just like a school. The teachers are looking at us and they go, Brian, he's not too bright, but we'll keep helping him, right? This is what we're all going through, and then when they say, another, and when she said, sometimes in another to one more plainly and to another less watchful, right? Well, I was one of those not so watchful for a very long time until, of course, I said, as I told of a future event that was so specific as to be unbelievable, yet it did occur. And from that seed, I embarked on the discovery to understand how and why lives are predestined. And I found the answer in Spiritism. In fact, after learning and reading everything I could get my hands on about Spiritism, I wrote a book detailing how my life was guided by spirits above. The book is 7 Tenets of Spiritism, How They Impact Your Daily Life. You can find it on my web, on my blog, nwspiritism.com. Go on the right-hand navigation side, you'll see 7 Tenets of Spiritism, How They Impact Your Daily Life. In examining my life, I found I had many signs and signals that I had blissfully ignored, like a 5-year-old who doesn't understand he's being manipulated, right? In essence, Spiritism lays out the reason we are here on earth and what is our destiny. We are here to learn to become civilized spirits, to utilize our vast potential power for good. All of the chaos and hardships on earth are the direct result of past wrongs we have committed. The spirit world expends great effort to show us the effects of those hurtful and wrongful past deeds. Remember, no matter what you're going through, no matter how depressed you are, we are immortal souls who will travel through life after life until we learn that love, charity, fraternity, and honor should be the keystone of our everyday life. Sounds simple and direct, but extremely difficult in practice. I fail every day in some way. And the spirit Kathleen, who communicated with the Reverend Vale Owen, this was in 1917, about how we are guided and inspired by our spirits to follow the path predestined for us. She revealed that we don't follow a set plan that is known to all. The spirits directing us are only allowed a short foretaste into our future. That knowledge of everything's going to happen is a higher level. Our immediate spirit mentors are only given what they need to know at the time. So Kathleen goes into detail what is revealed to us and what we can and can't do against our assigned destiny. And this is really interesting. This is what she said. But to few is given to know or glimpse the future far ahead. So I'm going to stop there for a second. The higher the spirit is, the more you see of time. So a very low spirit, someone in the umbral, as they say in Portuguese, the lower zone in English, these lower, less mature spirits can see part of the future, right? Because time doesn't exist, but they see the whole thing. The higher spirit can see more and more. So as the higher you go, it's like you're on a 5,000-foot mountain, you can look down at someone. Then you're on a 10,000-foot mountain, you can look on the whole path, right? Where the person's on the path, the future, and the past. So let me go more to what she says. But to few is given to know or glimpse the future ahead. Sufficient unto the day is the rule, as he once said, and this suffices. So your trust to be firm and quiet all the time. Not because the future is not known, but only because it is competent alone for those of high capacity and estate to view the distant course of life's grand purpose. And our capacity is sufficient for just a little view. and that of man in average scarce for any view ahead at all, right? Like me. And such schemes are given through so many spheres descending. It is therefore of natural consequence that they be tinctured by the dominant character of each of those spheres through which they filter downwards. And by the time they reach you, they partake of a nature so complex in design that the ultimate issue is very hard to discover, even to us. This is like guardian angels, times off, who have some practice skill in the matter. This is one purpose and use of faith, to be able to realize one's duty and no more, and on that conviction to go forth and do valiantly, never doubting that the end is seen by those who compass the design. Again, this is why we too need to have faith, right? Kath, we need to understand that God's plan for us knows what they're doing. In fact, the Spirit Joanna D'Angelo says, we should have love, goodness, compassion. We should have faith in the future of what is planned for us, and gratitude. 5 things we should think about every day. And what they're telling us, even though we're not, even our spirit mentors are not sure what's the intent and objective. They probably can guess because they're probably, figure these things out of the command. The knowledge that their superiors above are aware of the situation and are focused on the ultimate goal keeps their dedication steady. Spirits realize by their interaction with superior spirits that these high souls are in a position of leadership because they have earned it. They have passed test after test and arrived at their present level on merit alone. And having arrived, they do not lord over inferior spirits, but treat everyone with humility and respect, unlike here on earth, right? Even more is revealed to us. As one descends in the levels of heaven all the way down to earth, the span of future, as I said before, narrows until it reaches ground level, where the present is all that is exposed. That's all we see, right? We're like the horse that is blinkered, right? We don't see anything. We don't see the future coming on. We, here in our incarnate bodies, we are on the receiving end and are following an invisible script, unknowingly acting on cue and speaking our lines until we make choices that draw us off course. Kathleen elaborates how all this works. Oh, there's Donna. Hello. For every man, this is what she says, every man is free to choose, and no man's will is overruled in the manner of his choosing. If he choose to go faithfully onward and with trust, then the end is sure. If he choose to go out of the way design, then he is not let nor forced. Guidance is offered then and gently. If this be refused, he's left to go alone, yet not alone, for others will be his companions, and that in plenty. So, what have we been told? The choice is always between one of love, charity, fraternity, and honor against flight from responsibility, selfishness, greed, envy, and revenge. We would not need any external guidance if we learn to follow our inner voice or conscience. Nevertheless, the spirit realm fully understands our infinite capacity to rationalize away our baser decisions and attempt to supply us with a reminder. And mostly, certainly in my case, we make the mental gymnastics to convince ourselves of the rightness of our decision and overrule that nagging voice inside, which incessantly tries to light the way to the true path. The argument that other people are doing it too was always one of my trusty standbys. Right? So it just shows you how bad I've been. I'm learning, right? I'm learning now. So fortunately for us, Spiritism, brought to us, codified for us by Allan Kardec, describes the reward for delaying immediate gratification against the immense benefits of a heavenly reward. I read this many times in books, not just by Allan Kardec, by Chico Xavier. What they say is 100 times more than what we could ever experience on earth. The loving atmosphere of heaven from the first level to the top is a goal worth denying yourself of any ill-gotten gain on earth. In the physical world, all states are temporary, and in the spirit realm, all is eternal. So let's give an example of guiding the human race, right? So when one reads the Bible or compilations of messages from inspired authors by spirits, the information is interesting, but one is not able to grasp the process behind the concept. And Kathleen, this is what's great about Reverend G. Vale Owen. It's the information that G. Vale Owen tells us is really complementary to all the books, by Chico Xavier and Yvonne Pierre. It gives us more insight into how this works. Kathleen, there's Louise. Hello. Kathleen tells us we are guided, but what does that mean? So how does that work? Well, I've been talking about guiding and inspiration, but okay. So she supplies us an answer. So Kathleen delivers a detailed explanation of the process of influencing events in the progress of the human race on Earth. She begins. In order to illustrate our meaning, a book will be projected whose need is seen, right? They want to give us some information. We will say that those in the sphere whose dominant note is that of science will conceive the outline of the book. This is handed on to another sphere whose note is love. Into the scheme will be infused a softening, rounding off effect, and the scheme handed on. A sphere where beauty rules will add some illustrations which will give harmony and color to the theme. Let me stop there for a second. So what she is saying is there's information that's needed to have us think about this, right? And now they're thinking, okay, how to introduce that to the humans? Let me carry on. Then it will come to such company as they study the different traits dominant in the races of mankind. These will study very carefully the theme itself and look for the nation most fitted to put the venture forth in the world. This decided, they will carefully select the next sphere to which it shall be entrusted. It may need an infusion of historical precedents or a poetic vein or a romance perchance. And what started out as a framework of hard scientific fact may issue into the earth's plane as a scientific treatise, a historical resume, a novel, or even a poem or a hymn. What is she telling us? Nothing is done on a whim by a higher spirit. All is thought out. Each possible outcome is mapped. Each option is analyzed. Multiple departments examine the plan and add, subtract, or modify the details. There is no supreme intelligence determining out every move. It doesn't work that way. God provides the grand structure, the noble goal, and the spirits at many levels who all had started out like us, create and work to implement the plan. All along the process, during creation, implementation, and delivery, each phase is monitored and possible slight alterations made. There is truly an army of spirit benefactors working to move our herd of slow-thinking humanity, I am one of those, onward to a better world. Imagine what the earth could be like today if we actually cooperated. So Kathleen iterates the method to achieve assigned goals are flexible. This is what she says. For you will readily understand that such schemes are originated not all in one sphere, but in many, and do not pass all from one spirit to another in identical order. Also, what may originate as a book before it reaches you have been so much transfigured to become an act of parliament or a play. Even a commercial enterprise, there is no finality to the ways and means. Whatever eventually seems to commend itself to a group of companies concerned in the production of any scheme in the service of God and on behalf of man is pressed in the service. Thus it is that men work out the work of those who watch and guide them from on high. Let such, then, realize what great host of helpers they have behind them and go forward bravely, nothing doubting, never faltering in their way, for they are not alone. So she's telling us, under the leadership of Christ, we, once and future earthly humans, have experienced the pain and joys of physical existence, are the core to the day-to-day efforts to guide those who are on the planet under a cloud of ignorance. We, the incarnated, travel through our life under the impression that we can find bliss at some future point. If we just plan ahead and save for a rainy day, we can amass the required savings to find a peaceful sanctuary and live as we wish. Spiritism smashes this fallacy. We are on earth to change, to learn, to grow, and that is next to impossible without stimuli. We aren't allowed to retreat. We must be present in the class and participate. And let me give you an example. When I was in high school, and they must have known about, this is what my free will is working, that I wanted to go and, into the military. I wanted to be in the Air Force, right? But then in my senior year, I had to get glasses. Well, that cut that off, right? So my eyes didn't go bad just because of chance, right? Of course, I thought it was that. No, it went bad because, okay, we know you. You want to go this direction. No, you're not allowed that direction. You're going to go this way. This is how things work. This is on my book, The 7 Tenets of Spiritism. You have to look at these signs, right? It's like, if let's say you want to buy a house, and each house, there's always some reason you can't buy it. Then you come to one and it's like, oh, this is it. And you just feel this is it, right? And then everything just goes, nothing went smoothly. This one, all of a sudden, everything just goes smoothly. Everything just like flows. It means you were meant to buy that house. You were meant for that. You were meant for that woman. You were meant for that man, right? let's say you went through relationship after relationship, just horrible. These people treated you like dirt. Well, those are lessons. I got news for you. Most probably you treated others like dirt. You're learning like, oh my God. And hopefully your lesson you're learning from that is, I'm not going to treat people like they treated me, right? Hopefully your lesson is not to go out and get revenge on all of humankind, but to know that you don't want that to be like them, right? So there's legions of former incarnates who are back in the spirit realm, whose job is to move us as a collective and individually forward. We are nothing but a grain of sand on the beach as powerful and incessant waves pound us, each wave imperceptibly transforming our character to the better. This is what we must realize here on earth. We are here, we are loved, we are guided, but we have to create our patience. And this is what I've written on this book, is how to live inner peace through Spiritism. I did this because there was a poem in the book, Spiritual Wisdom, Missive of Hope, by Herculano Pires and then Chico Xavier. And the poem has 24 verses, very short, but each one is so much packed. And what I did is I wrote a chapter on each one, and it's telling you what needs to be done. Like, here's participation in everyone's progress. What does that mean, participate? And I go through it. This is what the spirit world wants us. And this is our ladder, how to become a better and more loving person. So I think I've gone over time here. I just want to say God bless for everyone. Thank you so much for participating in our talk today. It is so exciting to be here. And again, remember, at the next Sunday at 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 Eastern, I think it's 8 p.m. in most of Brazil, right? And all around the world. And of course, each of my talks that we live stream on Kardec Radio, I post onto the YouTube channel. So you can always look back at all my previous talks. I'm going through chapter after chapter in my books. I'll keep doing more and more. I also create a bunch of 5, 10, 4-minute videos on different aspects of Spiritism. Some of them have actually been translated and under the captions in Portuguese. So look at those, subscribe to the channel, share those with people. I'm hoping we can bring more and more about Spiritism to the whole English-speaking world, because it's already, it's great within the Portuguese world, because Brazil's done so much, right? They are the heart, right? That's the future of the world. They are the heart of the movement. And the United States is supposed to be one of the engines of the movement. So we're all trying to spread what we can. Anyway, God bless all of you, and I'll put the end credits on now. I would like to thank everyone for listening to our program on Kardec Radio, and to point you in a direction to find more information about the spirit world around us. You can visit my blog at www.nwspiritism.com. Again, that is www.nw, as in Northwest, spiritism.com. And if you are ever in the Northwest, I certainly would welcome to have you come to our meeting on Bainbridge Island near Seattle in the state of Washington. Many blessings to all of you, and please continue to explore Spiritism and the spirit world around us.